Chapter 14. "You're playing with fire and you're going to get burned," the woman said. She stood 5'6", a few inches taller than Hannah. Her voice deep, clear, and sarcastic. Her face flawless and youthful like Hannah's, but it was the tone and deepness of her voice, the erect manner in which she stood, that signaled to Hannah that she was perhaps older, more worldly and experienced than Hannah. "Excuse me?" Hannah said, surprised that the brazen woman stood so close, and yet Hannah didn't believe she could be talking to her. "You heard me. And if you're wondering, I'm speaking to you." She placed one long finger with black polish on her nails in Hannah's face. Hannah moved away from her. "What is it you want?" Hannah tried to compose herself. She held her purse strap hanging over her shoulder, not expecting to be robbed, but to prevent the woman from seeing her hands shaking. Hannah didn't want to show that she was nervous and afraid, but what is to be expected when out of nowhere a woman whom Hannah never saw before steps in front of her grinning as if she has lost her mind and says nonsensical things to her. "I want to warn you about the vampire Jovani." "What are you talking about?" Hannah said, narrowing her eyes, no longer upset but confused and angry. "Jovani, of course. He's mated to someone of his kind, and I'm her messenger. If you want to live, I suggest you tell him that you no longer want to see him." "Why should I tell him that, and what gives you the authority to tell me who I should and should not date?" Hannah voiced, defiant. She didn't owe anyone respect, especially since she didn't know this woman, and the woman was being rude and vulgar. Lately she learned that she was an adult and living on her own. Why should anyone dictate her life, especially a strange, belligerent woman? "That's why you appear upset. He's someone new and you know nothing about him, or maybe he's the only man who paid attention to you. That's what it is, isn't it?" She watched at Hannah's expression. One moment, Hannah lowered her eyes when the woman had made the statement about the only man who ever paid attention to her. On seeing Hannah's reaction, the woman began to laugh, a high-pitched, continuous laugh. "That's it, isn't it? And you're thinking about letting him fuck you." Hannah stepped back, annoyed at the grossness of her language. She wanted Jovani to make love to her, not fuck her. "If I'm upset, it's not because of that. It's because I don't know you and you've just threatened me." "You don't know what it is to be threatened by a witch. You have just met Jovani and just fallen in love with him. It happens all the time. He's handsome and desirable, and because you're so young, you think you're in love with him. But it's not going to end well. I don't have time to listen to this nonsense. You know nothing about me, and I doubt you know Jovani. You're probably someone who's stalking him, and that's why you're aware of our relationship. You've probably seen me or heard about me from someone." Hannah made a move to walk around her, but the witch extended her hand to the left, and from her fingertips, she flashed a ball of fire and lit up the dark street, preventing Hannah's passageway. Hannah moved hastily the opposite way, and to the right of the ball of fire which blocked her way once more. She could only stand and face her. "Now do you understand? This can continue all day, until I'm ready to let you leave." "What is there to understand? A magician's trick? Is that what you're about? Trying to scare me into leaving Jovani? I'll tell him about your visit and your warnings." "I've heard about you all right. I thought you were a smart girl. But you don't believe what your eyes are telling you, and I doubt that you believe he's a vampire and I'm a witch." She gave Hannah a small, closed smile. "It would take more than a light show for me to believe something as far-fetched as witches and vampires." "And werewolves?" Hannah slanted her head to the side as she met Tasia's gaze. "Jovani's mate informed me about you. I thought you were intelligent, but I see you aren't. You're too stupid to live. Eventually Sasha will kill you if I don't. You should hope I do, because Sasha will not be as kind. She will give you to a young vampire who will toy with you by draining you of your blood, day by day, and when Jovani sees you, he will not recognize you because you will be ugly and old." Before Taisia stopped laughing, Hannah shivered, and it wasn't from the cold or the news of Jovani having a mate. For some reason, Hannah knew everything she said was true. She had been warned by Justin. Then she heard a voice mumbling something, and it was the woman in front of her calling on something in a strange language as she held Hannah by the shoulders. Taisia's eyes rolled upward, and all Hannah saw was the whites, and then her eyes bled. Hannah tried to move her feet, her arms, but something held her, and then large hands grabbed Hannah by the mouth and began dragging her along. "I was wondering how long it would take for you to get here," Taisia said. "We can't do this in the light," the tall blonde witch said, looking to his left and right. "Then take her to the SUV. Too bad this will have to look like an accident. I could have used that skin. If Jovani finds out we're all dead. Get rid of her and burn her body." When Hannah heard those words and realized she would be taken and never found again, she struggled, but it was for nothing. "Get her into that SUV and dispose of her body now. I'll meet you back at the apartment," Taisia said. She kissed the male witch as he held on to Hannah. There was no way Hannah could scream or kick because the witch had done something to her with her chance, which paralyzed her. She watched at the apartment and brownstones pass by as if they were moving, and she was not. It was surreal. In the darkness of that one street, no one saw her being dragged to a waiting car. She would never see that block with her home and its trees full of leaves in the spring. She would never see the snow in winter. This will be her last night on this earth, and she would never see Jovani again. When Hannah realized that there will be no more nights, she willed herself to calm. She closed her eyes and wished for someone to help her. And when she no longer fought, she became lifeless, and with less of a struggle, her body became heavy like a corpse. The blonde witch had to stop because she felt weighty. When he let her drop to the ground and bent to retrieve her to put her on his shoulder, out of the darkness a large black wolf sprang and sprinted over from across the street and landed on the witch's back, tearing at his neck. When the blonde witch reached behind him with both hands and grabbed the wolf and threw him to the ground, he landed on his feet and stood as tall as the man. A ferocious werewolf. The largest and the first werewolf he had ever seen. The witch rose up mumbling words, but before he could get out a chant, the black wolf attacked with his large talons, ripping at the witch's chest, leaving a large gaping hole down the middle. Yet he still stood, and the wolf leapt again, and this time he didn't miss the warlock. His large teeth tore into his jugular, and he didn't part from the witch until he had ripped it from the side of his neck. But the wolf wasn't without a wound. The witch managed to burn a scar from the werewolf's left cheek down to the side of his chest. Justin glanced down at his scar. It had been an easy win, but if he had not surprised him, and if the female witch had stayed 1 minute longer, Justin would be lying with Hannah. The first lesson of his father. Don't take on witches without a pack. Justin stood and changed into human form. He had lain his pouch on the side that he wisely carried, holding his jeans and shirt. After quickly pulling up his jeans and throwing on his shirt, he rushed back where Hannah was lying on the grass beneath a tree, and the SUV angled across the street. Reaching down to pull Hannah to her feet, Justin said, "Wake up, Hannah." He jostled her face in his hands. And a groggy Hannah opened her eyes and stood weak-legged. She fell into his arms after looking up at him. "What happened, Justin? Was I dreaming?" Her voice broke with fear and astonishment. "I wish you were. You will have to call Gabriella and tell her you're coming with me." "For what reason?" Hannah said as Justin steadied her and took her hand, leading her away from the scene of a horrific crime. "Tell her anything, but don't tell her the truth. Don't tell her that 2 witches tried to kill you. And don't tell her that I saved you and I'm a werewolf." "Why would I tell her that?" "Because that's the truth. If you don't believe me now, turn around and look at that thing lying on the sidewalk," Justin said, hurrying Hannah along. Hannah slowly turned, and her hand came to her mouth with a gasp. "It's true. Everything is true. I thought when I woke up that this would be a dream." Then she looked at Justin. There was a long scar down his cheek past his mouth and on his chest. As if a hot poker had been put to him. She passed her hand over it. "You need to get to a doctor. It's a horrible burn. Almost like a hot knife did that." We have to get out of here first. Let's get off this street and get to some lights. I'm going to hail a cab. You have to go with me or the female witch or her master, that female vampire, will kill you. But what about Jovani? Can't he stop them? Do you see him now? He's not coming to your rescue. All you have is me, Justin said, breathless and a bit bothered by her words. He wrapped his arms around her and led her off that street in front of her house. As they neared the end of the corner, he hailed a cab. When they stepped into the cab, he said, "Here's the direction to a private airfield. Take us there." "Hey, buddy. Don't you think you need a coat and some shoes first? Just get us to the airfield and don't stop for anything except a red light." The cab took off when he handed him some money. "Why are we going to the airport?" Hannah asked, her eyes looking cautiously at Justin, noticing what she hadn't noticed before, that he had no shoes on as he worked to button his shirt. Stopping once to examine his wide chest filled with dark straight hairs covered in blood. Hannah reached over and helped him button the last button. She thought, "He is a werewolf. Do I dare believe what my eyes have seen? I need to get you safely out of New York. When that witch discovers that you're still alive and I killed her mage, she will have her coven of witches after us. And that female vampire that's mated with Jovani is the most dangerous of them all. She rules over that witch." "Where are we going?" "To my home. My family, my pack will protect you," Justin whispered, as if he spoke of a secret. When in fact the whole notion of werewolves were secrets to the outside world, and he dared to bring a human female that wasn't his mate into that world, who had a jealous vampire longing to mate with her. Justin wasn't exactly being truthful with Hannah because he couldn't tell her the truth. Nor could he tell his father. Lysel had argued against bringing a female who was hunted by vampires and witches, and once Jovani found out that he has Hannah, he will be on the rampage, and all this will be at the Samses' doorsteps. All the fury of a lovesick vampire will bring passion, anger and rage with him, which may cost the Samses pack dearly, and Justin will be the cause of that anger and revenge, and the pack will be the object of that violence if they protect him.